Think back to a training course that you've done and what that you've really benefited from, and think about what made it so useful for you. And when we apply this to energy efficiency, basically good energy efficiency training helps you do better work on the jobs. It helps you achieve more. That means that you're going to have clearer methods, you'll be doing stronger calculations, you'll have better communication, and really importantly, you'll be able to map a path forward from the audit, which provides advice, through to implementation that your clients actually follow. So it's not about just checking boxes and getting a credential. It's about building confidence and getting projects approved and implemented. Energy efficiency training, what to look for and what to avoid, a practical guide. So are you choosing an energy efficiency course and wondering which ones actually build skills? This video is a practical, optimistic guide for engineers, facility professionals and advisors who want training that turns into real-world results and not just a certificate. You'll learn how to compare programs, what must-haves to insist on, what red flags to avoid, and how to use a course to create work you can show. We'll keep it fundamentals first and tool-agnostic so the advice stays useful as tools change. Hi, I'm Bruce Rouse from the Sustainability Education Academy. So training comes in two broad kind of roads or lanes. We have the residential or home energy audit lane, and residential audits involve short visits to the site. Normally simpler energy efficiency measures, although the ones to do with the building envelope can be quite complex and often lighter documentation. In commercial and industrial energy audits, we're looking at a deeper dive into data, and often there's a lot more data. Stakeholder engagement and alignment becomes much more important. The calculations are often more complex and have to be done very carefully. And then there needs to be a defined path through from taking the audit recommendations to funding them, to procurement, and then to verification of savings. So in this video, we're targeting the commercial or industrial lane. Now, if that's your path, make sure that the contents, examples, and practice in any course that you take align with that lane. Don't jump into a home energy audit course if you're doing commercial or industrial, in other words. So what are some must-haves in a quality training program? Well, firstly, there should be a fundamentals first, tool-agnostic methods. So look for training built on clean data practices, transparent calculations, and when you're learning, spreadsheets are great, and clear documentation. So tools change, but the fundamentals travel with you. Secondly, try to look for real case studies that you can learn from, or an instructor that can talk about real case studies. Case studies that show the context in which it occurred, the assumptions, the numbers that resulted, trade-offs and outcomes. They should be specific enough to be instructive and not just marketing stories. So basically you need instructors that actually really know their stuff and have done it themselves. Thirdly, you should be practicing with feedback. Look for courses that have short quizzes that explain the correct answer if you get it wrong, small hands-on exercises, and instructor or reviewer comments that can help you improve. You also need to look for communications, skills around developing communications that lead to decisions. You should be learning about models and one-page summaries that decision makers can understand, that speaks the language of decision makers, because clarity for the decision makers moves projects forward. There's nothing worse than a decision maker getting a highly technical report and not being able to make sense of it. An important other element is orientation to standards and obligations. A course should point you to current codes, performance standards and guidance that is relevant to your region and show you how to document your approach. It shouldn't necessarily promise to ensure compliance because it's very different from region to region. Now then, the evidence that you can show, the best courses help you produce kind of a work sample or a portfolio project, which often is anonymized. It could be a short report, a mini case, or actually an energy audit, an anonymized energy audit, calculation package. You can then discuss in interviews or performance review. Have one where you can actually have a sample energy audit that you've done for assessment, and then you can show that because it's been anonymized. So some red flags when you look at training would be training that's all theory and no application. If you never really look at the numbers, touch the numbers, if it's all based on assumptions or just very short write-ups, probably won't change your day-to-day work much. You need to go beyond just generic checklists. Checklists help and can be very powerful, but without the context and calculations, they don't really prepare you for real sites. Also, courses that just have a very narrow climate lens, just focused on one particular climate zone, For example, courses that only focus on very cold climates or only hot or humid climates, they come and limit your usefulness. So ask for variety or at least clear indications as to what climate the example might be coming from. And then there's also watch out for courses that just really offer you a certificate but don't give you any feedback or practice. So if you're just getting a certificate actually and you don't get any specific feedback, it may really not move your capability much or your career. Really depends on how much internal feedback you give yourself, I guess. Also, look for, I guess, hype without fundamentals. So training may focus on a particular tool, but tools come and go. Training should be seen to work even if the software that you might use changes. So what are some common field challenges in the energy audits, and what does good training teach to deal with these challenges? So one of the challenges, a big challenge, is limited data or very messy data. So you need to learn how to build defendable data sets, energy use breakdowns, how to make sensible assumptions, how to be transparent about the uncertainty with your estimates. The second challenge is getting buy-in. This is a tremendous challenge. So you need to learn how to practice and how to explain measures in plain language and connect them to cost, comfort, uptime, and goals that the executive team or the decision makers, that's important for them. Another challenge is to verify the results. Now, you need to see that appropriate measurement and verification concepts are implemented so that your work stands up to review. Now, that's actually a huge training course just in itself. And then adapting to context is really important. You need to adapt particular measures to the climate zone and building type that they're applied to and adjust them accordingly. You can't just take a calculation that works, say, in a very cold climate and assume that it's going to work in a temperate climate. So some tools and templates that can actually help and which useful training may give you would include some simple data gathering sheets, some basic line calculators, some methods for doing calculations, some summaries of different energy savings measures, and perhaps a short report structure. The point isn't to have fancy dashboards. It's so that you can have clarity so that you can deliver projects under time pressure. And then credentials and recognition, of course, that can be important, but you need to get the balance right. If you want a credential that's actually tied to demonstrating that you've got the skills, look for programs that include practice and evidence, not just a final quiz. So now I want to talk about the Investment Grade Energy Auditor or IGEA program by the Sustainability Education Academy, otherwise known as STEMI. This takes kind of a fundamentals first approach and includes, as part of getting certified, a live 1 hour interview. And then on top of that, that's a provisional certification, but final certification. You actually have to present an energy audit that you've done from start to finish, and which gets extensively reviewed. So then you've actually got a capstone project that you can refer to if you're looking for employment. And then you can actually show that you've done, hey, well, this is the energy audit that I presented for my final assessment for the IGEA, for example. So recognition for the IGEA, the Investment Grade Energy Auditor certification, is growing internationally. It's important to bear in mind when you think of any course that no single course, even the IGEA, makes you an expert. Mastery comes from doing many projects over time. So choose training that helps you start producing evidence early that accelerates some of that experience and that can be a substitute for early experience. But to become a real expert, you're going to need more experience than what you're going to just from a training course. So how do you use a course to build your portfolio if you want to develop a portfolio for the purpose of your career? So if you're doing a course, I'd be picking one site or one measure, probably preferably one site that you're fairly familiar with, and preferably the largest the site, the better. And then apply what you learn in the course end to end on something real as you do the study. So if you're doing a section on lighting, we'll try to apply it immediately to lighting at that particular site. Document your assumptions. State what you know, what you estimate, and why it's reasonable. Now, in energy audits, there's many estimates, but you need to justify those estimates and make sure that they're reasonable and not just have I guess 10%. Yeah? It needs to be some real logic behind it. Another important thing is to keep your evidence short. One or a simple chart and a plain English summary can be really good. Also ask for feedback. A reviewer's notes now can be worth much more than a bigger report later. And then track the outcomes. Super important. If your advice gets followed and some of your measures get implemented, try and capture the before and after and capture the lessons learned so that you know next time I do this, well, this is what I learned from this project. This worked, this didn't work. I got this right, I got this wrong. And then that way you'll improve. So let's just kind of get towards the end of this by looking at a quick buyer's checklist for energy auditor training. Firstly, you should be looking for one which is fundamentals first and with tool agnostic lessons. It's not forcing you to learn a particular type of software. Secondly, you should be looking at one where you get to practice and you get feedback. So there should be lots of quizzes and mini exercises. Thirdly, you'll be looking for real case studies with numbers and trade-offs. Fourthly, not always possible, but try to have it oriented to local standards or obligations, or at least mention what standards may be applicable. And then fifthly, templates that you can reuse on the job. And then sixthly, if the course can provide you some evidence or work samples that you can demonstrate to future employees or your future employers or your current employers, well, that would also be suitable. So to wrap it up in the next steps, choose training that helps you do the work better and not just learn terms and definitions. Start with a small project, produce evidence, and improve the feedback. And if you want a fundamentals first path with practice and a reviewed energy audit, explore the Investment Grade Energy Auditor certification, or IGEA, by the Sustainability Education Academy, or SUSTEMI. And there's a link in the description below this video.